If all roads lead to Rome, then do all roads diverge from Rome to all the corners of the earth where Catholics look towards the capital of their faith, this historic city built on its 7 hills. Historic indeed was this winter morning when from Vatican City, the prisoner of the Vatican, as popes are sometimes called, motored to the airport. Pope Paul VI was beginning his pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Almost overnight, it seemed as if the quiet and unassuming pontiff who succeeded the universally popular Pope John had become popular himself. Italian cheers expressed what Catholics felt throughout the world. Here was a move in the direction of unity of the Christian churches. Only a few weeks ago could have foreseen that a jet airliner would have His Holiness as passenger bound for the Holy Land. He is the first Pope to fly, and on the airport, or in the spirit, Christendom bade him Godspeed. At Amman Airport, they had feared that low cloud would prevent a landing there. But the Eastern patriarchs and other dignitaries did not wait in vain. The airliner came in perfectly. King Hussein's personal bodyguard was lined up to do military honors. In his white robes and uniformed as an air marshal came King Hussein to meet the pontiff. This was a moment to be remembered in Christian history, perhaps in the history of all religions. Nearly 2,000 years ago, the first Pope, St. Peter, left the Holy Land. Pope Paul was now to be the first supreme pontiff since then to tread the sacred soil. Divinely inspired, believed his followers, was his decision to make the pilgrimage. Between the Holy Father and the young king, there was immediate friendship. From the airport, the Pope was driven 54 miles to Jerusalem. He planned in 3 days to visit the places made sacred by the mission on earth of Christ himself. Along the River Jordan, the road runs here, passing the spot where the Savior was baptized. No Christian, whether he be Holy Father or lowliest of men, can pause here and not be most profoundly moved. Jerusalem, the holy city. Later, the Pope rested at the Apostolic Delegation on the Mount of Olives. In parts of the old city, there was tremendous excitement. Conflicting faiths meet in Jerusalem, but now there was harmony. The Papal Pilgrimage touched the imagination of all. In Damascus Square, they awaited with reverence the arrival of Pope Paul. It was now that the security arrangements became almost totally inadequate. Such was the press of people, the Pope was nearly hidden from view as he calmly made his way towards the Damascus Gate. No such experience had ever befallen a Pope in modern times, but His Holiness was unruffled. From this old city, how Christianity has spread. Priests from the Philippines carried a cross along the Via Dolorosa, where Christ bore his cross to the place called Calvary. The Garden of Gethsemane, the Mount of Olives, and the Church of all nations. And certainly in every Christian nation, that name, Gethsemane, evokes reverence and pity. That last scene in the garden, we know the painting by Hoffman. This filmed reproduction by courtesy of the Palace Gallery. In every part of Jerusalem, the papal progress excited enormous interest. On to Nazareth. In this ancient city, Jesus grew up with Mary and Joseph, working in the carpenter shop till he is ready to begin his ministry. Pope Paul visited here the Church of the Annunciation. It venerates the informing of the Virgin Mary by the angel Gabriel that she would be the mother of Jesus. This is a most sacred building to all who profess and call themselves Christians. At Capernaum are the remains of the synagogue in which Jesus preached. In this town, he made Matthew, Andrew, and Peter his disciples. Capernaum is on the north side of the Sea of Galilee. Tiberias lies on the western side. The Church of St. Peter is on the site where Jesus called him to abandon his fishermen's nets and become a disciple. There is still fishing on the Sea of Galilee. They saw the Pope leave St. Peter's Church. In the steps of the Master, Pope Paul continued his pilgrimage. A reproduction of Tintoretto's Christ at the Sea of Galilee is shown here. It is a Palace Gallery color type. Not even here, where the Galilean preached and wrought miracles, could the Pope stay long. But the experience of being at the shores of the sacred sea will be a memory remaining always, both with him and all who were there. He was now returning to Jerusalem. The Savior himself was acclaimed in Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, when his life on earth was moving towards its tragic yet triumphant close. The Dormiton Church on Mount Zion marks the scene of the Last Supper, the upper room. A Medici reproduction of the Leonardo painting is here shown. How many millions have sung the words, "Christ was born in Bethlehem"? This little town was the scene now of the meeting of the leaders of the two largest Christian churches, the Roman Catholic and the Orthodox. They were estranged 1,000 years ago, reconciled briefly in the 15th century, only to diverge again. Athenagoras, first among equals of the patriarchs of the Orthodox Church, came to the Church of the Nativity to meet Pope Paul. Those who avow the Eastern faith number perhaps 200 millions. Athenagoras, 6'4", made an imposing figure. The Pope now himself approached the church. In the grotto, Jesus was born and laid in a manger when there was no room at the inn. A star indicates the actual spot of the Holy Birth. By courtesy of the Medici Society, we show a reproduction of the Adoration of the Kings by Mabus. One object of the Papal Pilgrimage was to move towards the unification of the Christian churches. When it is achieved, that unity may lead to the wider community of peoples worthy of the Son of God, who was born in Bethlehem.